Hey, how's it going there, folks? Welcome back here to a Tuesday night. It is the Earthmaster out here. About 10:06 p.m. here, May 28th, 2024. A couple more days left here before we hit the June month. Latest activity here shows a 1.3 into the area of California. Starting off here with space weather activity first, though. Looking at former sunspot 3664, renamed as it's now visible here on the Earth-facing side of the sun. Looks like this thing wants to blast off another X-flare. We're getting this long-duration C-flare event right now. And it does look pretty promising there that we'll see an X-flare ramp up here real soon from that sunspot. It is still on the position over on the eastern limb here where it will probably not be geo-effective in terms of any subsequent CME, but it's been bright like this for a little while. Look at all the plasma just hanging up here above that sunspot. Definitely looks like things want to stir up there across that sunspot area. And look at that, just continuously C-flare activity stretching almost here into the M flare. I'm betting that this thing will blast off an X flare here soon. 3697 is the new name for former sunspot 3664. Of course, if you don't know, this was the region that produced many X flares here. The last time it was out here weeks ago on the Earth-facing side of the sun, produced auroras down into some historic low levels, including right here in my home state, Northern California. Southern California seen it, down to Puerto Rico as well. Fairly eventful, once-in-a-lifetime event that took place out here. Now, here's the dynamics of that sunspot. Still quite complex, believe it or not. After going around the far side of the sun, looks still fairly promising here to produce some further X flares. Now, if you look up here across the northern hemisphere of the sun, getting quite a bit of dynamic setup here from this sunspot as well. So we're looking at two growing sunspots here. Well, this is more of a growing one. This one here has just been, it's been strong for a while. It did produce a massive CME explosion on the far side of the sun while it was back over there. And then just recently the X 2.9 as it was cresting here the eastern limb as it was getting ready to come back into view here. So this just remaining strong. These things can come and go. They can kind of deteriorate a little bit and then pick back up in terms of complexity. So we'll continue to watch these sunspots. Looking at a 99% chance for C flare, M flare at 60, and the X flare potential has been elevated here to a 30% chance. And there's that X 2.9 that kicked up there a couple days ago from that sunspot there on the southeastern limb. Now it looks like 3691 here, that's going to be this developing sunspot, has kicked itself up into the beta gamma delta structure, which is the more serious sunspot type of magnetic sunspot there, capable of producing some X flares. So we do have to watch that. 3697 is a beta gamma. And again, it still definitely has some potential for some further X flares as well. We're going to watch these in the coming days. But, I mean, look at this. This thing, there's quite a few interesting details on this. Look at that. It almost looks like it's right in the process here of creating a huge flare. So we'll watch this. We'll check back at the end of this video, see if anything's blasted off from there, because it looks pretty serious right now. All right, no major roars in the forecast. There's that continuous C-flare activity from that sunspot there that we'll watch. All right, earthquake activity. See what's going on out here. Anything big going on? Well, it's kicking back up here in this area once again around the Tonga Trench. We're noticing a handful of deeper quakes followed up by surface adjustment. It's been a continuous back and forth here between the deeper areas of the subduction zone and shallower areas upstream. So it does look like this area may kick up another large earthquake here soon, or within the vicinity of this area, probably by morning. We'll check back in the morning time and see what stirs up out here. But there's been so much deep activity, and the latest one shows a 4.6, 300 kilometers deep into the Tonga Trench. This is major subduction zone, and really no migration southward, at least on the USGS side of things. There is a little bit of activity here, as you can see, southern end of the Kermadec Trench with this very deep earthquake. So there is definitely somewhat, a little bit of migration here towards the New Zealand area. Lacking earthquake activity out here across Solomon Islands and the Vanuatu area. So we'll keep an eye here on this area for some further large movement. Overnight, deep activity there into the Izu Trench, way up here. Although I don't think that's the one that's shown up on the globe. That's a 4.4, a little bit further upstream at 56 kilometers deep. But there was a really deep one here. Let's see. I believe it's this 4.3 here. Yeah, look at that. 500 kilometers deep earlier this afternoon as well. So things are definitely moving around the Pacific Plate here recently. The Kuril Kamchatka up here showing some activity as well with a 4.8. That surprisingly not showing up here by the USGS. It is on the Earthquake 3D globe, though. So the EMSC model reporting some of the quakes that the USGS is not picking up on for some reason. South America area, handful of deeper quakes down there as well. Typical clustering going on in the Middle America Trench. As far as Southern California goes, let's zoom in here, see what we got going on. The latest activity shows, looks like a 1.9 here. Next to the Salton Sea, really nothing big going on. No major swarms going on. We did have a little bit of swarming, of course, stirring up south of the border over the last few days. Just general, somewhat elevated earthquake uptick across the majority of Southern California here recently. But no specific area as far as any fault system showing uptick. It's just a broader scale out here. So, as always, just good to be prepared out here across the area. Further up north, one little lonesome on the Hayward Fault. Very dangerous fault system there. It runs through the East Bay region. 4.4 kilometers. And Northern California got a handful of smaller quakes out here as well. Looks like a... I got to get rid of this here. I had it up for a second so I could keep an eye on my graphics card, but it's a little bit in the way. 3.1 here on the west side of the valley. That coming in earlier this evening. Also a little small quake here into the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. 26 kilometers deep. Again, Cascadia mega thrust area sits right offshore here. That's the southern end. And, of course, that extends all the way up here to the Queen Charlotte Sound area. That's the northern end of the Cascadia up there. As far as tremor activity goes tonight, let's double check the Cascadia tremor. 468 epicenters of tremor. Not bad. So over the last few days, we've seen somewhat elevated tremor counts out here. Nothing of any sizable amount compared to what we had seen in the years past. But 2,704 epicenters in the last week. Most of that has been here in Northern California, so underneath Northern California into the subduction zone area. And so we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Obviously, you know, this thing's been building up steam here for 324 years. The question is, do we have another 100 or 200 years to enjoy our time out here, or is this going to kick up soon? You just never know. Definitely something to watch here. The all data here shows our last major tremor count was back in the end of October, or the October 2022 time period, where we've seen regular intervals of large tremor. And since then, it's kind of gone down. But we'll continue to watch that. There's been periods here where things have not been as active as certain years, but still it's going through little cycles out here, and it's kind of interesting to watch. All right, up into the Washington area, a handful of smaller quakes up there around Mount St. Helens again. Nothing big going on up there for now. Just a couple small earthquakes at the summit area. Yellowstone National Park here, still showing some crazy activity on the seismograph stations there. That obviously malfunctioning. As far as seismic activity local here at the area, Doesn't look like it. I believe, let's see what this one here is. There's a kind of an interesting reading here on the graph that did show up here across a few areas. Looks like it showed up on this one here as well. Doesn't look like earthquake activity. That's a little interesting looking. I would say it's interference locally to a seismograph station, but it is showing up here across a few different seismos. So hard to say exactly what that is. If it was wind, it doesn't look like wind though. It looks like, I don't know, kind of a odd long duration event. Sometimes magma intrusion could look something like that, but I don't know if it's magma. I don't think it is. The windy map up here doesn't really show anything from earlier in terms of heavy duty wind up here. That was about 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 5 p.m. or so. Actually fairly calm up there, so hard to say exactly what that is, but definitely a little interesting reading. But not at the same time. See, that's right here. You got Purple Mountain showing it a little bit sooner than, say, for example, Mary Lake. So it's hard to say exactly what that is. Some type of noise. But realistically, if this was happening at the same time, all the seismograph stations here should show it at the same time, and they're different. So who knows why? It could be a network hum, maybe some type of interference coming in through the network that the seismograph stations picked up. I don't know, but we'll check back on it. Not a whole lot of earthquake activity though. One little blip of earthquake there. Hawaii, what's going on out here on the Big Island? Doesn't look like much. Obviously still inflated underneath the area, quite high. In fact, the highest inflation being recorded since 2018, since the 2018 eruption there that kicked off on the East Rift Zone of the Big Island. East Rift Zone of Kilauea Volcano. Deformation data here. Let's check the graph and see what's going on. Obviously, we're coming back up, it looks like, after a little deflationary and stationary tilt. And we should peak up here in the next day or so, previously, or higher than the previous levels out here. This is the last month of inflation. And as you can see, each stair-stepping event here on the graph was larger than the previous one. So, but we're high. We're definitely way up there in terms of the accumulated stress here at the Kilauea Volcano. Another area that's highly stressed, and I don't know how much more it can handle out here, is the Grindavik area down here in Iceland. Someone mentioned here that they have issues seeing the magnitudes here. Now, these magnitudes are not that big. The majority of these are they are actually under a 1. Some of these are negative, meaning that they are extraordinarily small, but still, it's some type of earthquake activity nonetheless. But far as anything sizable, I'm not seeing it. Again, these are all 1.0 and smaller. And it does look like things are staying pretty consistent in terms of the earthquake activity out here. No eruption activity to note yet, but I think it's getting there. I think it's getting really close. Let's check out the latest information here from the Icelandic Met Office, which was put out today, it looks like. No sign of magma no signs of magma accumulation slowing down. No signs of magma? I guess no signs of an eruption yet. Deformation data show that the land rising at the Svartsengi continues continuously. Love it. Continuously. About 20 million. See, right? Wasn't I just about right? I mentioned that last night. 20 million cubic meters of magma have been added to the magma chamber since March 16th. It does say that the accumulation is slowing down, but it doesn't make sense with what they're stating here. We've gone up big time in terms of magma accumulation underneath this area. That 20 million cubic meters of magma is now at its highest level, even prior to the eruption that took place that kind of started it all off back in November of last year. So 400 earthquakes have been recorded in the last 7 days. Eruption warning may be very short, but we'll see a lot of earthquake activity prior to any major eruption. So there's still high probability of a new magma flow and another eruption. They're stating that the most likely magma eruption will take place in a similar direction to the 6 magma eruptions that occurred since November 2023. But still, obviously that potential of seeing it away from this area. We have seen, obviously, some fissure activity begin to open up there just in the north side of the Grindavik area. So here we are. Can't really read. These are just the dates when the eruption kicked up. Since the Earth's crust and the upheaval zone between the Stora Stagafell and Hagafell is heavily fractured, it is likely that magma will have an easy way to the surface, and therefore the upheaval will not necessarily be accompanied by high seismic activity. I doubt that, though. The warning of new eruption can therefore be very short or even non-existent. So we'll watch it. You know, obviously these guys are keeping an eye on things. The key indicator to watch is obviously earthquake activity. We've seen it time and time again prior to any eruption taking place out here across Iceland. So right now the area of interest, at least here on the map, is just outside the Grindavik area. And of course we did have that one fissure open up right about here, if I remember right. Burned down a couple of these homes here. I don't remember exactly how many it was, but it was starting to open up here. So there's obviously some concern that it could kick back underneath Iceland. If you remember back in November, before the eruption took place, or October of last year, this whole area swelled up big time and then it sunk. So obviously there is areas down here where the magma have traveled through. I don't know if they've completely cooled down underneath the area, but there's always that concern where an intrusion could take place underneath this area once again, and therefore erupt at the surface levels across the town. You never know. That's kind of the worst case scenario, or even around the Blue Lagoon area or the power plant, which sits over here. But the key is watching all this earthquake activity, so we'll definitely keep an eye on it. All right, didn't want to make this too long of an update, but we'll get it going right now. A couple threes here around the Puerto Rico area. Let's look here, see what else we got. Minimal movement across the Atlantic. One earthquake way up north here, 3.4 well on top of the globe. That's probably the North Pole area. Let's check the space weather activity here once again. See what we got. It's getting there. It's definitely getting bright. This was, they haven't updated it yet, so I'm kind of curious to see what it looks like now. This is at 0505, which is about, 20 minutes ago. So I'm waiting for them to update it. In the meantime, let's check out weather activity. The current day 1 outlook shows a little bit of noise out here overnight across Texas and western Oklahoma and western Kansas. There's a slight chance there for some tornado activity outside the Lubbock area. Mostly wind and some giant hail being reported. I was watching Reed Timmer's stream earlier, and he came across some huge hailstones. I think they were 4 or 5 inches in diameter. Pretty crazy out there. So I got that continuing. The day... Ooh. Okay, it looks like we're back now. But Yeah, lost service there for a minute. I don't know if it was because of the page I went on or what, but someone's having fun out there. I've just been, I still don't know who it is. Someone, some entity, some corporation, somebody out there has been, obviously been messing with this channel for quite a while. I've had issues with the stream going down at odd times continuously. And then there's little times when I'm doing updates like this, and it seems like they try to pull the plug. But right now, we're running stable. Let's get back here and double check this day 2, which is going to be on Wednesday. Right? Notice that severe weather shifting much further up north. A very linear type pattern here. Western areas of the states from the Dakotas down south. Eastern Colorado, it looks like getting in on some of that activity. Not a huge tornado threat, but wind and some hail potential out there as well. And it looks as though maybe into just after about the first week of June, things start to tone down in terms of the severe weather. We get more of a northward flow, which would prevent a lot of the spin-ups, right, in terms of tornado activity. That right there will keep most of the severe weather threats low in terms of tornadoes. And hopefully it stays like that, because those guys out here, I've seen a lot of tornado activity here recently, a lot of devastation. And it's just, those guys definitely need a break. High pressure going to be building up here across California this coming week and weekend. Really start to cook out here. Look at this dominant, huge ridge of high pressure. This type of setup right here going to bring a lot of heat down into the Texas area, guaranteed. So we'll have to watch that. California is going to be cooking as well. Oh, actually, it looks like we're going to be pulling up a lot of monsoonal moisture already here in June. That's why it's so cooler out there. Notice that blue on the map indicating some monsoonal moisture. But up here, ooh, man, it is going to be hot. California as well. Roughly about the June 6th time period, we're supposed to have temperatures around 108 out here in Northern California. Just looking at the long-range models. And, man, looks like it doesn't last for long, though, at least out here on the West Coast. But monsoonal moisture does look like it may come back in here to the picture. All right, so it looks like they've updated it. That's at 5:15 now. Still throwing off this long-duration C-flare event. Good chance here that we'll see an X-flare pop off before it goes down. A little bit of a downward motion right now, but we'll keep an eye on it. Again, that's going to be an area to watch here in the coming days, as it is still very active. And obviously 3691 up here, getting quite a dynamic setup here. Maybe for some stronger flaring very soon. This one's, pretty much facing the Earth. A little bit northward movement here, or northward position on the sun, but still probably be geo-effective if anything were to blast off from it. And of course, this area down here we'll watch pretty closely. All right, still live. Looks like we're good. I will catch you guys back out here in the morning. Let's see here. Seismographs all look pretty quiet for right now. Not a whole lot popping off here, at least in terms of the seismic movement. So we'll catch you guys back out here in the morning for the Wednesday morning update after a little bit of sleep. In fact, I'm going to bed right now, right after uploading this video. Take care, guys. Stay safe out there.